Outrival actually first launched at DeepStation last year at the AI Center. And now here we are for round two. Let's give it up for Ryan and Outrival. Yeah. Thank you all so much for coming once again. Ruben, Timur Meister in the back, the co-founders of Outrival are here as well to represent. Really appreciate it. When they first launched over at DeepStation last year, we were just really blown away by what they showed. They had digital workers down to a T. And so now I'm going to let the great Ryan take it from here.
I'll take this. Yeah, that was a great intro. Thanks for the hype up. I appreciate that, Grant. So I'm Ryan Doan. Today we're going to be talking about digital workers and how we're reinventing the future of work right here in Miami. So short intro about me. Started off at Amazon for about 5 years. We were personalizing the retail website. So if you were to search something on Amazon and I were to search the same thing, we should get different results because we're different people. We have different propensities to purchase different items, so we have to surface those. Spent about 5 years there. After that, I went over to create a course called ML Expert. It's a way to get software development engineers transitioned into the machine learning community. It's about 6 months to make that course. We have 75,000 students, so it's a great thing. If you're interested in learning more about ML, go ahead and check that out. After that, I was over at Symantec Health. So what we found was there was a lot of hospitals who had claims to file from when people visited the hospital. And unless they file the claims, they don't get paid. And what we found is they didn't have enough people to file the claims to get paid. So we created an AI algorithm to scan all the clinical documentation and automatically submit these claims to insurance so that the hospitals could have some semblance of an operating margin. Hospitals got pretty slammed during COVID, so it was a great tactic for them. We sold that company about 2 years ago. Now I found Outrival in December, where we help institutions integrate with digital workers. So we're going to talk about kind of the evolution of... Is this one better? Nice. Yeah, it is better. They got me like on the podcast mic. All right, so we're going to first talk about the evolution of work, then a case study, engineering, and then finally how we package this all up. So first off, we started in kind of like the industrial worker era, right? This thinking of like lots of people doing the same thing over and over all day long. This is going to be like 12 to 16 hours days, just maybe putting the caps on top of bottles, right? And you're going to be doing that 6-7 days a week. It wasn't the greatest experience for being a worker. With the advent of machines and electricity, of course, we were able to transition. We were able to take kind of that human, like that non-human work and let people focus on something that was a bit more human. And so then we got promoted as a society, as an economy, to a knowledge worker. So these are going to be people that are focused on what they know and transition more into a service-based economy from that doing the same thing all day, every day, forever. Now, we didn't really know what would come of the worker with the advent of machines, but what we found is that we just took on more human work. And as we've seen today, there's still elements of work that you do that are repetitive, and they're going to take place behind a computer where you're sitting there clicking buttons all day long. So we need a new machine, because ideally, we're able to take that experience of you sitting down, clicking buttons behind a computer, and making it such that you can do more human-centric work. That machine, and we're going to talk about it today, is digital workers. Digital workers will allow us to promote ourselves as a workforce to a next-gen worker. Right now it's a question mark. We'll go over what I think it's going to look like, but for now we're just going to call it the next-gen worker. So that sounds good from like a high level, kind of sounds good on paper, but how do we actually go into different sectors or the economy itself and begin this process? It's going to be like a large undertaking. So we have to break down the economy into different sectors. And what you see here is different dials. These dials represent the percent of a 40-hour work week that's spent sitting behind a computer and or doing those computer-based repetitive tasks. Some of these are not very surprising, like information. That's where I'm at, of course. 90% of my day is behind a computer. But then over here, I have the little stands blocking it, but over here is mining and agriculture. It's going to be 20% of someone's day sitting behind a computer. What's interesting to me is real estate. I know some folks in real estate, and I don't see them sitting at a computer too long. They're trying to book showings and sell homes. But I looked into it, and there's a significant amount of time, especially on the commercial side, managing inventory software, property management tech, tenant management systems. It's a lot of people behind computers clicking buttons. So let's just say we were to bring that down to zero. That would be the automation phase. So we're automating out this idea of repetitive computer-based work. If you take those same people who were doing that work, they were already spending 40% of their day doing human-based tasks that computers weren't doing. So if they just doubled down on that, instead of spending time behind the computer clicking buttons, the GDP would have an apparent lift, nominal, not inflation adjusted, but nominal lift of 2.3 trillion. We'll pick on another industry here, education. So education, 45% of the time is spent on a computer. This is going to be learner management systems, student information systems, CRMs, people behind computers clicking buttons. If we got that down to zero, and instead allowed the institution to employ resources that focus on more human work, meeting up with students on orientation day, helping them move in, helping them discuss what do they want out of their life? What are they going to do once they graduate? Not only would we get more human work, but we would see another 1.1 trillion nominal lift in GDP. If you repeat this exercise across all the sectors and sum it up, it's about roughly 15 trillion in impact. Now, this isn't like a one-time thing. This is going to be every single year. And for reference, 15 trillion is about 41 billion a day. That's, I think we'd pay like 3 billion a day for national debt interest. So with this approach, now assuming it all goes to zero, which is going to be pretty tough and it's going to take a long time, but assuming we do it, we could pay off the national debt in 2 or 3 years, and people wouldn't be stuck behind a computer doing the same thing, clicking buttons all day long. They'd be focused on more human work. So it's a good thing to look into. It's a good thing to try to accomplish. So how do we actually do it? Let's say we want to go into an industry. The first thing you have to do is identify a revenue-driving, repetitive work that's measurable and optimizable. So a bad example is like a bank. A bank cares deeply about interest rates, but they can't control it. So they're going to measure it tightly. They're going to have a business that depends on it, but they can't call up the Federal Reserve and say, hey, can you allow it for me? So that's not a good metric. What is a good metric are things like conversion rates, resolution rates, something that drives top-line revenue to a business that they care about, they measure it tightly, and they have some semblance of control over it. That's a great, great place to start. The second one is you have to implement something now that you know of that. So you got to deploy a customized digital worker that specifically addresses some sort of KPI, key performance indicator, that you found out from step one. Lastly, you got to report out. Half the job is doing the job, the other half is telling everyone that you did the job. And this is going to mean proving that value add in a time-bound way. And you got to get an ROI from it. You can't charge them more than they didn't make. And you have to make sure that it's weeks, not years. There's a bunch of Fortune 10, big companies out there that you can go to, and they'll have 5, maybe 10-year roadmaps to deploy out new systems for large companies. That's not us. We want to have something that we can prove out in weeks. Yes, we can take strategies to build years-long projects to make your organization fully digitized, like for digital workers, freeing up humans to do human work. But when we prove it out initially, we want to focus on the weeks-long trajectory. Let's put this to an actual example, because right now we've been pretty philosophical about it. So we worked with one of our partner institutions, and together we identified, this is not like we do everything on our own or they do everything on their own and they just are using a platform. We're in a partnership. So we're actually working with these institutions to help them out. Together we identified a re-enrollment risk, and they care about it. They really measured it. They said, hey, this is how many students we believe are at risk for not re-enrolling. And that deadline to re-enroll is quickly approaching. The only hiccup there was they had to reach out to tens of thousands of students in a week. They'd have to hire a pretty immense team to cover that ground. And that's where digital worker really excels. It's highly digitized work, and the impact is deeply cared about by that institution. So that's what we did. We trained a digital worker. We established the goal. We want people to enroll. The cadence, when do we call them? How many times? What happens if we leave voicemails? What happens if we get a text back? What if they call back later? Outreach channel. Do we just call them? Do we just text? How do we know what our audience wants to do so we can meet our audience where they are? Finally, we needed to establish some frictionless call to action. We wanted them to enroll. If we just message them, hey, don't forget to enroll, what is that going to do? You know, you have to make sure that you provide a way for them to actually execute that fairly easily. Lastly, you have to present outcomes. You have to prove that you added value. So we re-enrolled thousands of students, created about $3 million in value, and that was all within about 72 hours. So these things are effective, and you can chip away at broader industries by even just focusing on this three-step process of identifying, implementing, and reporting out. So how does it actually work? How do you go and make someone $3 million in 72 hours? There's three core pillars that we focus on. One is orchestration, the other is compliance, and finally performance. So for orchestration, you have to treat every interaction, whether it's the first or the 1,000, which we do. We have people who have texted us over 1,000 times in a month just to keep the conversation going. We have to treat it as a long-term relationship. This isn't like a one thing, like, hey, we need something from you, can you do it? Or maybe every time we reach out, it's just to get something from them, right? We actually want to establish a relationship so that these businesses can have a dedicated resource to these individuals. This includes their preferences. So do they like to text? Do they like to call? Do they like email? Their availabilities. Maybe you told us last Wednesday, we called you, you picked up, said, hey, I can't talk, I'm driving. Cool. We got to remember that. And their affinities. Why are we talking to you in the first place? Are you trying to enroll in a policy for insurance? Are you trying to enroll in a program? Are you trying to go on a cruise? We have to remember what you're doing. We also have to incorporate history. So these are all the past interactions. We got to know if we've tried to reach out to you like 5 or 6 times and you're still not picking up, like we have to know when you call us back, the conversation has to be run a bit differently than if we're reaching out the first time or if you're calling in the first time. We know who you are. We've had history. We've tried to reach out, or maybe we've had 1,000 text messages from you this month. We know a lot about you. You've shared a lot of information with us, and we have to make sure that we keep in tune with that and remember who you are. That includes major life events. Did you just graduate? Why did you reach out for insurance? Is there an illness? Why are you going on that vacation? It's like a long lost aunt that you haven't visited in a while and now you're going to Italy, and we got to remember those things. We have to make sure you understand that we understand you. Lastly is the goal. What are the needs of these individuals? What are their trajectories? Sure, like maybe they've enrolled in a program for wanting to be a travel agent, but what's after that? Where do they want to go? Finally, what are their constraints? Maybe you've told us over the last 3 months that you really want to become a travel agent. And then all of a sudden, the due date's on maybe the 16th. And we text you on the 7th, like, hey, I know we talked a lot about this. I know you want to get this done. I know who you say you want to be. You gotta, payments are due on the 16th. And you can text us, hey, I don't get paid until the 15th. Well, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing we can do about that either. Maybe we'll check in here and there just to make sure things are going good, but we're not gonna reach out to you when we know that you've told us that you can't do something. So we got to identify those constraints. Next up is compliance. So each and every interaction, we have to safeguard. Stringent, up-to-date compliance. This is going to include regulatory, so local and federal sector-based adherence. These are going to be all your FERPAs, HIPAAs, FDCPAs, TCPAs. There's a ton of acronyms. You can Google them later if you want. It's a lot. And every single state could have varying standards compared to federal regulations. And they can change too. So you need someone dedicated, making sure that as these things are published on these agencies' websites, that you're actually following them. Secondly, we have personal information. If someone shares something with a digital worker, that's confidential information. If someone shares information with a digital worker about a particular illness or a certain constraint, if it shows up in our platform, in our dashboard, we don't want the staff of that school to be able to see that information. It was not shared with that staff. It was shared with our digital worker. So we have to protect it. Lastly, excuse me. Lastly is security. So we need granular authentication and authorization at each point. When you call us, yeah, you can have a phone number and we can't just trust that. You can spoof a phone number. We need to make sure that we have multi-factor authentication at every step. And even if we know who you are and you say who you are, we have to make sure that you have the right permissions to whatever you want to access. You can't access someone else's information, but maybe in cases of HIPAA, you can. FERPA, you can, right? Because if you're a parent or a student, there's different regulations that allow us to share different information with various people, and we have to make sure that we're stewards of that. Finally, this is like the fun stuff. I think this is what a lot of y'all are interested in. This is the performance. This is us needing to be industry leaders to make sure each conversation is optimized for both an outcome and a technical perspective. So this is going to be things like I talked about earlier. This is make sure that we can resolve conversations, making sure that we can convert individuals if that's what they've expressed interest in. Through that comes throughput. Right now, we can support up to 100,000 interactions a day. These can be texts, calls, inbound, outbound, voicemails, anything like that. We also have to be responsive, right? So if you're texting someone, maybe you don't want to text right away. Could you imagine like you're texting a digital worker, and as soon as you hit send, it's just like it sends back, like it's kind of creepy, right? So you might need to add a little bit of delay there, but for phone calls, you don't want that, right? You want to be able to call them up immediately and have a conversation with them that actually makes sense. So that's where responsiveness comes in. Finally, conversion rate. This is kind of a misnomer. I mean, I didn't have another word for performance, but that's really what it is. You can have different means of performance, and in this case, I chose conversion rate. We need to be more effective than traditional methods. If you're not, you're more of kind of a cost savings thing, right? It's like, okay, well, you're not better than, someone I could hire, even if I'd have to scale up by 1,000 people, could they compete? The answer is no. One, they don't want to scale up to 1,000 workers to make 20,000 calls in 3 days or 100,000 calls in 3 days. They don't want to do that. But even if they did, we need to be better to make it a no-brainer. And that's where we went head-to-head with a human team. And compared to a human team, we're 30% more effective at converting. So that was a big one for us. That took, I think it was like a 3 or 4 week experiment. That was a big milestone for us. All right, so we went over kind of the 3 pillars of what makes this possible, but let's go ahead and dive in a little bit to the architecture. So first up, we have the comms layer. So this is going to be, I didn't know it'd be at my feet. Let me go over here. So the comms layer is going to be everything that is required to actually give the agent or digital worker a voice. This voice could be a literal voice, like audio signals. Well, it could be text signals as well. So messaging is anything, SMS, WhatsApp, Instagram, whatever. It's just non-voice. For voice, we need to hook into telephony systems. We have to register with CNAMs. We have to do 10DLC. We have to do A2P. There's a bunch of like things there that you just to get started, you have to register with a lot of different aspects. And then that's just gonna get you into the telephony network. But that's not gonna let you have very clear voices coming through the system. For that, you need other technologies like WebRTC, stringing all together through SIP interconnects. So it's a very challenging endeavor. Messaging, same kind of deal. It's one thing to just try to send a programmatic text message. It's an entirely other ordeal to send out maybe 100,000 in one day, and people can message back at any given time with any given question, and you just have to make sure you can field all of them. You also have to remember every single thing that you ever texted about, which I don't do that myself, but these agents have to, and they can. All right, next up is context service. So this says write operations over here. The next up is context service. So at any given time, these digital workers need to be hyper aware of anything. It could be any past interaction, it could be any data that gets passed from the actual customer themselves, or maybe the customer, or end user in this case, is passing it back to our customer in form of our industry partner. The read and the write operations are separate because most of the time we're going to be reading. Whenever we make an interaction with someone, we're very likely going to have to call some service and read it. Less frequently are we going to actually write, right? Unless there's some bidirectional interface and they want to make sure that they're aware of every single interaction, we're probably going to write things less. It's probably going to be more information out than information in. Next up is the journey management. So everything is just a giant state machine. So every single contact has a journey. It's not just like a, hey, okay, great, we sent out 100,000 text messages yesterday and we were able to reply to them once within 24 hours. That won't work. You're gonna lose people are gonna get bored. What you have to do instead is manage this journey and understand that there's different milestones along this journey. Some people can be into multiple journeys at one point, right? So they could have kind of 2 goals at once. You have to help them prioritize, help them arrange. Maybe they have to accomplish this goal before they can accomplish that goal. So you'll have serial dependencies. This is a large state machine, and that's why it's necessary. On top of that, we have experiments and reporting. This bubbles up to analytics. I know experiments isn't usually tied with analytics, but for us, it's paramount. When you're making 100,000 interactions a day, you have to be very clever about what you're doing. You have to understand, are we meeting the audience where they are? Are they engaging with us? Are our scripts right? Without that, you're not going to get better. And even if you want to try something new, you have to employ certain maths to make sure that what you're doing is actually working. Or else you're going to have regressions and probably not even know it. In terms of reporting, the goal there is within 10 seconds to 30 seconds, any form of stakeholder, from maybe a manager to an executive, should be able to understand immediately what the impact of the digital worker is. All of that bubbles up to a dashboard. This is kind of a window into the soul of all the complexity behind it. And the challenge there is it's such a complex system that we have to bubble it up and make it usable, make it understandable, and hide all the complexity while still making it malleable. So how do you send this stuff out to customers? It's one thing to have some technology and have architecture and have performance and everything like that, but how do you actually get it in the hands of the customers? It's one thing to just come here and say, oh, okay, well, traditionally you're gonna have what's called a platform integration, where someone gives you access to a tool and that's it. The strategy is up to you. So you have to define the one metric that matters. You have to map use cases to revenue. You have to ensure there's bidirectional CRMs. You have to manage baselines, baselines for experiments, tune your own policies, and basically be responsible for weekly revenue lifts. Also, same with reporting. Every single institution wants to be reported to differently, and each institution has different stakeholders. So you can't just have a one-size-fits-all for reporting. You have to have a very tangible way to make sure everyone's satisfied. Same with reputation management. You know, people aren't going to come here and make sure that the quality of these conversations are negative. You have to dive into that. You have to make sure that every text you're sending out, every call you're sending out, no one's getting upset at you. This is the traditional way of doing it. I don't recommend that. What we've seen work really well is a forward deployed implementation. So this is making sure that we own these processes on top of just that software solution. This is going to make sure that we will handle everything if you want us to. We don't have to. Here, these are little dash lines. The dash lines basically indicate you can be as involved as much or as little as you want. But we're here to help guide you. And if you have way better strategy ideas and all that, we're there to work with you as well. This is us joining your team to make sure that you're successful while covering all these boxes. So it's not just the technology. The technology alone is kind of a half measure. The technology plus the forward deployment, that's actually the package offering, and those are the 2 most effective tactics. Those 2 tactics combined allow us to tackle each of these industries one by one, and as they get 0, we'll be able to realize the nominal GDP lifts, and only then will digital workers finally accomplish the goal of promoting the knowledge worker into the collective worker. The collective worker is a worker where collaboration, human networks, and shared creativity outshine any sort of individual knowledge or skill. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Amazing, amazing. Who's got some questions? Right here, my man.
Hi, great presentation. It's a question for you, and actually it's a question for Raphael also. When we talk about agents, AI workers, digital workers, you didn't mention that they present themselves, or how do they present themselves as digital workers, because it seems to me it's absolutely crucial to make the distinction, especially because it's starting to wane, the distinction between a human agent and a digital agent.
I see.
So how do you approach that?
Yeah, so your question is generally, how do we present ourselves as a digital worker? Is that right? Yes.
Yeah.
So every single interaction that we have, we make sure it's very clear up front that we're a digital worker. We're an AI agent, we're that. We're not out here to deceive people. We're not here to say, hey, we're trying to pretend to be as human as possible. We actually have seen interesting results with revealing the fact that we're an AI agent. Google kind of found this out early on. They understood that some people will Google things that they haven't even verbalized. That's pretty interesting to me. And that's what we found out as well with a digital worker. People will call up a digital worker and go, oh, I think this is maybe a bot, because after a 5-10 minute conversation, you're going to know that it's probably not human. But then what happens is they share more. They feel like they're not hassling someone. They feel like they can call you at any hour of the night. And all of those things bubble up to a better experience. So that's why we're transparent for both the ethical concerns, but also just for the better customer experience.
Thank you.
To use a metaphor, thanks. To use a metaphor, I have an understanding of your company philosophy and what's under the hood, but I don't understand as well where you want to take the car. Can you share more about use case so that I can have an understanding of application of what you're doing? Because right now, I can't tell the difference between your company and Raphael's company, even though the presentation was completely different. I can't tell if he talked about what they do for clients and you're still talking about the engine. Is that so? And I'm not techie at all. I don't
No, that's
know.
great. Yeah, no worries. It's a good question. What we focus on is anything that takes a lead and helps them convert at scale with the highest performance possible. That's what we're focused on. We're obsessed with performance and getting your business the best results. That can be making a lead into a customer. It could be nurturing maybe a long-term customer that maybe lost interest in your business and revitalizing them into your business. So nurturing and taking any sort of paid or organic lead gen and converting them into a customer. That's where we focus on, is that performance. We also make sure that we're doing a lot of things for you. We don't have that traditional platform approach where you just get access to a dashboard and you're kind of off to the races on your own. We're there with you. We're, to your car analogy, we're driving the car for you. You can elect to drive the car if if you really want to. We're there with you, and especially when you start out, you're going to be in the passenger seat with us, guiding us. We're going to be driving the car.
Thanks for your presentation. Is there any chance that maybe after this presentation we can see the dashboard or maybe hear a call or anything like that?
It's a good question. Potentially, yes. There's a group of you want to raise your team? Raise your hand, team, please. Nice. Thank you. So yeah, if you see any of us, you can come talk to us about things. We don't have the dashboard available for showing right now, but if you stop by, we can describe it. The thing is right now we just have customer data in there, and we don't want to share that. But we can. We're working on a demo dashboard, something like we can look at.
What are the size of your customers, typically your clients? Your client size?
Size in terms of?
In terms of number of employees?
We focus on enterprise. So that's going to be typically companies that are, 200, 300, maybe $1 billion plus, focusing on that enterprise scale. Yeah.
You spoke about the history feature.
Yes.
How, just from a technical point of view, to the extent that you can, how do you go about, implementation and, recalling that context for all your users?
That's a great question. So a lot of it is making sure that we understand what has happened in the form of the natural language that it happened in, and then surrounding that with a bunch of algorithms that understand that natural language, parsing it out, determining relevancy. Relevancy can be both just like time-based relevancy. Relevancy can also be prompted. So if someone asks you something, we know how to derive relevancy. Versus if we're just starting a call and no one has said anything yet, time-based relevancy will probably overpower that because we know what happened more recently than other events.
Amazing. And a question for myself as well. So what happened when you did not deceive, right? Like in the sense of like you don't tell them, or if they ask you, right, hey, are you a digital worker? And you're like, no, I'm not. Not in the sense of that, but but not leading with it, right? Like
So we do lead with it.
Right, but I'm wondering. Sorry, maybe I misphrased, but I meant to ask, what did you find when you did maybe, or if you did try in the past, where it didn't immediately lead, but it revealed if they asked? What did you ever try that, and what were results if you did?
We've always disclosed from the very beginning. That's kind of just been our mantra. So we don't have that data.
Got it. That's a great move and very upfront and ethical. So amazing.
Great presentation. I have a question. So it seems like the main difference between like different companies is how much you specialize in industries plus how much can you scale. Like, for example, you were saying you guys serve like massive businesses, right? So let's say you guys want to jump in a new industry. This is more on the commercial side, right? So do you guys go to a new business and just come up with already a structure or like talk tracks already done, right? Or workflows that are already maybe tailored for the industry to be like, hey, I could be of value for you guys? Or it's more of a, hey, I sit down with you, I just listen, build, go back and say like, this is what we could do for you, exactly for what you need.
So we have kind of baselines, right? We have templates that we can use. They're not extremely helpful. Like each of these businesses operates significantly differently from one another. And it's not only that, but it's not upfront so much that like, hey, what do you want? And kind of like a one-time handoff and exchange. That does work for deployment, like coming and making something very curated. But it's also the maintenance. Yeah. Organizations move and change, not rapidly, but a company is going to look, especially like in the size like enterprise, it's going to look different a year from now than it did a year ago. And so, yes, that works with deployment, but with maintenance, it's a whole other playbook of making sure that you're still staying relevant, still helping that organization thrive.
Thank you.
Amazing, absolutely great. One last question to one of our great community members who's been with us for a long time. Thank you so much.
Great presentation. I'm actually an AI student at Miami-Dade Community College, and when you spoke, I was in my head, the orchestration, everything that you mentioned, we're actually building the same thing at MDC.
Nice.
We're actually orchestrating a MDC student concierge. So you spoke just like my professor. I feel like I was at school. So my question to you is that you actually mentioned education, but you spoke from a perspective of the students. So you guys have never worked with the university, because our goal is to actually create MDC concierge for the student, for the teacher, so that they can teach AI through our own experiences as students, so that we're building it as we speak, right? And also the student experience. So these are three tiers that you mentioned, and it's very interesting because that is where everybody's going. So I guess like you spoke from like, from a student perspective, but you guys have never worked for a university for this kind of build?
So I think probably what you're alluding to is kind of like front office versus back office. So front office would be like dealing with the students directly on behalf of the university. I think maybe one use case that you're suggesting perhaps is like working with the staff members at the institution and helping them with these digital workers. Is that right? Is that what you're, okay. So we do both. We do both. We started off and found a lot of success by dealing with the front office tasks first. But what we found is once you start in that front office, you have a fairly good idea of how that audience behaves. And then you kind of more or less the perfect conduit to different back office functions based on what the customers or end users or front office outcomes are. Yeah. Yes.
Amazing, amazing. Let's give it up one more time for Ryan.